Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and good evening for people who are joining us from Saudi Arabia. I'm Ali Alsedais, currently pursuing my GSD from Washington University in St. Louis, where I also serve as a teaching assistant. I also work as a lecturer at Islamic University in Medina in Saudi Arabia. I'm honored to serve as the moderator for today's session, and we are delighted to welcome our speaker, Osama Kandil from Arizona State University, who will be presenting on the topic AI, personhood, and KSA's regulations. I also would like to extend a warm welcome to all participants. Thank you all for being here. And please note that this session will be conducted entirely in English. The presentation will last for approximately 15 minutes, and we will reserve the last 10 minutes for questions and answer. Participants are encouraged to ask their questions either using the chat or by raising their hand. Once called upon, you will be able to unmute your microphone to ask your question directly. With that, Osama, the floor is yours.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and Assalamu alaikum everyone. I want to thank everyone for attending today, and I want to thank to the people who orchestrated this great symposium. And I am honored here to talk to you about the idea of AI personhood and how Saudi Arabia is regulating this new technology. The first half of the presentation, we're going to talk about how Saudi Arabia is currently regulating this technology, and the latter half is going to be on how or if AI could ever have a personhood and have legal rights and obligations. And the main authority that regulates AI and data is the Saudi AI, the Saudi Data and AI Authority. We're gonna talk about the Alsedais from now on. First, we'll talk about the definition of AI. So there's no global consensus so far on the definition of AI. Each regulation in each country defines it in its own way, but in a very general manner, it is a type of software, a type of coding that is similar to human intelligence. That's great. If you could go to slide number 4, start from there. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So again, so no global consensus on the definition of AI, but the general idea is that it is a type of software that can mimic human intelligence. It is not exactly the same as human intelligence. It is better than us in some aspects and worse than us in others. That's why the name artificial intelligence. It's not ideal. And how Saudi Arabia regulates it is just it defines it as in a software that senses, comprehends, acts, and learn. This definition is not perfect, I would say. Again, it is one of the definitions, but it can be more elaborated on later after. And the whole idea of either under-regulating or over-regulating AI comes with its own risk and benefits. So the idea of over-regulating, you might deter people from actually trying to innovate and trying to produce more AI products because they're so afraid of the regulations and hard regulations. And we can see that in the EU, where they over-regulated AI because they were afraid of its risk. And now people who are trying to make a business out of AI are going out of the EU just to do their business. And the risk of under-regulating AI is just, again, the risk to humans. So there is a fine line of trying to regulate it perfectly. Okay. So again, when I said that Daya defines it in a certain way, Even the words that I use in the definition is somewhat anthropomorphic, meaning that is more human than it is software. So even the word sense is more closer to human sense. But many research papers saying sense is the data input and how AI learns from the data that either it itself is trained on or that it currently is training on. And just a crucial reminder that AI is not just the LLMs or the large language models that we most commonly see or use, just such as ChatGPT, Cloud, and Gemini. That is just one type of AI, and there are many other types that each pose their own risks and liability. Next slide, please. Okay. And again, so in trying to categorize AI, it's a never-ending job because you could either categorize it very broadly on what it does and how it functions and what its base components are. And if you do categorize it that way, it's never ending. Each one has its own function. The same developer can have very similar AIs, but same, like, but very subtle differences, and each could have its own category. But in a general sense, I'm talking about either agentic AI, autonomous AI, and screening AI. I'm talking about these just because of their possible liability questions. And agentic AI is, and the correct way to frame this, it is an AI that works without human prompting. So in ChatGPT, we prompt ChatGPT and it gives us an answer. But that agentic AI, it sees its own information and has a goal that you put for it, and it just works with that goal. And a close approximation would be a human secretary. It knows your goals, it knows your schedule, it knows what you want to do, and it does every task leading to that specific goal. And autonomous AI is a little more narrowed and less and more focused, and it has a more specific goal with less functions, and you limit how it functions. And a very famous example would be the self-driving cars, just like the Tesla, like the Waymos. You can see a lot of them here in the US. Again, they have a goal, but their function is more limited than the agentic AI. Again, both of these create their own liability questions. The last part that I'm talking about is the screening AI, and it's a type of AI unlike large language models. Instead of giving you an answer at text, and instead of being trained and on text, it gives you actual output of differences of choices. So again, a famous example to help make us understand, is hiring or human resource AI, in saying that 100 applicants have applied for this job, and that's meaning AI just takes the skills or the background or the education and whatever goal that you put for it, and it just screens them into different groups on what each one is and how to deal with that each one. Next slide, please. So in Saudi Arabia, there's no hard regulation so far, meaning that the people who develop or work with AI, there's no penalties for them if anything happens so far, other than the other hard law, just like the PDPL, which is the Privacy Data Protection Law, which talks about uh, people's data and information, your name, uh, your face, your date of birth, your ethnicity. All of that is heavily regulated by SDAIA. But in terms of AI, it's more of a soft law approach where people or developers who are working in AI can opt in if they want to. So if they want to opt into that soft law, it goes with those laws and soft regulations. And if they do, they get certain benefits, certain badges, and even Sadaya has mentioned that they will be willing to work on them on that specific project. And this aligns perfectly with, it's a listen slide there. And this aligns perfectly with the vision of 2030 of trying to diversify the income other than the oil and crude oil exports. And I think that this is a great first step in this very new technology and just trying to test the waters and see how this goes. Now, next framework. Next slide, please. Yes. So in terms of how Zadai is defining AI, again, so it defines it as a software or a set of softwares that senses, comprehends, acts, and learns. And deconstructing each word, again, the word sense is anthropomorphic. It's more human. Even in Arabic, it's more to a human feeling and how people sense. We're not gonna take that on the face value. We're not gonna take that literally. We're gonna take that in a sense that AI is trained on data and it sees data and it can do actions based on that data. So again, not the human word of sense, but we're gonna see it as the artificial intelligence sense. Again, it also says comprehend, and even the Arabic word is closer to the human comprehension, which isn't defined by which isn't no research paper so far says that AI can comprehend. Even if there are AI so far that it said that it can comprehend, there's no actual research that says it can comprehend. And it's similar to a smart parrot where you teach it words, you teach the AI words, and it gives it back to you. So again, it's not that it actually understands what that word means, but it can give it back to you in a way that you think that it means. And then we have the act and learn, which is very straightforward and very understandable because all software, no matter AI or regular software, it acts and it acts. The differentiating difference between the learning, the AI and the regular software is the learning. The big revolution that recently happened to AI and it revolutionized the way that AI is seen is the machine learning. So before, software is just software, it doesn't change. But now with machine learning, the AI gets new data, either from its own actions, either from different actions, either on the data that it's trained on. And it actually changes the software that it is developed on. It changes, it improves, it does the same function, but more efficiently. And that's the biggest difference between regular software and AI. Next slide, please. I don't know how much time I have left, but I'm just gonna go through this quickly. So if an AI developer ever chooses to go with Sedai's soft power regulations, it has to follow by these 7 ethics principles. I'm not going to go into detail in each one, but the most important one would be the accountability and responsibility, meaning that no matter what AI or no matter what system is out in the world, there should always be a person behind it that can be accounted. So if a liability question comes up, if someone is harmed, if someone is benefited, there should be someone that we can go back to, either the developer or either the marketing or either the company that is putting it out there. And I think that is the most important principle out of the 7, and meaning that there should always be a person. And I think that's a great first step. AI should never be its own person and have its own liability. Next question. Next slide. Yes. So in how we as humans try to define the things around us. So to better understand if AI could ever have a personhood, we have to look first at the corporations and things, meaning that corporations are not real persons. They do not have a human body. They do not have a human consciousness, but they do have a goal and they do have set of regulations. And we as normal humans, as natural persons, can identify that goal and identify that person. And if that person is liable for something, then that person or corporation is liable for that action. And on the other side of the spectrum is the thing or any entity that is not a person. So even Black's Black's dictionary on definitions of legal terms, it defines things as entities that are not persons, which brings us back to the definition of person to define thing, which is a loop argument. And it's not a very strict spectrum in saying when is it a thing and when is it a person, most commonly seen as the Roe versus Wade, the embryo case, and if embryo could be considered a person. And alhamdulillah, we as
Yeah, sorry, Osama, I'm very sorry to interrupt you, but I want to leave some time for questions
okay.
since there are some people who want to ask, and I'm so sorry for the inconvenience that happened when we started this
Oh,
session. So, if, let's start with Hammam. If you can ask the question, please.
you can go to the last slide
Hammam.
of the conclusion. It has all the ideas. Maybe if someone wants to ask a
Yeah.
question, it has all the ideas.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question.
Of course, go ahead.
طيب, I maybe alluded to the answer, but let's say I was hit by a car driven by AI. What is the legality? What's is going there in the kingdom or the JCI or the states
Of
about
course,
this action?
of course. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. So so far there have been some cases. I wouldn't say a lot of cases, but there have been some cases on actual AR cars that have hit person, and there is a liability question. And again, so far there's no general consensus. There's no one clear answer on who is to blame, who is to be blamed. But the overall general idea is that there is a person to blame. Uh, Either the developer or either the person who put it out there or either the uh, person who is driving the other car. So again, AI itself could never be liable for its own actions. There's always someone responsible for it. Yeah, I hope that answered
Okay.
the question.
Thank you, Hammam, and thank you, Osama. Another question from Ahmed.
Of course.
Thank you. So this is Ahmed Al-Amari. Thank you for your talk. Your talk comes really in handy after Abdurrahman Al-Aqil's talk. I don't know if you listened to that talk when he defines the AI as being the responsibility of AI is upon the one who uses it rather than the itself having an entity or having a responsibility itself. So how would you align with that?
Yes, and that's a great question. Thank you for asking that question. So let's talk how it is currently being regulated by SEDAIA and how the future might look like if it ever reaches that point. So currently, SEDAIA again defines it as a thing, an entity. It's a tool. It's something that is being used. So there's always a person using it and always a person behind that action. So again, I stand with my brother's Abdurrahman's idea that it is a tool and there's also always a person liable for it. My paper revolves more around the future and how it might look like if it reaches a point of autonomy and sentience that it does its own actions and it again. So back to the idea of machine learning, it changes itself to do things that the developer did not even think about. So if the developer put it out there to do a certain function, and it did something out of its own volition to do that new action that caused harm to someone else, then we would have to look about the level of autonomy and the level of machine learning. And again, so that would tie into the idea of corporations. Corporations are different entities, but they have their legal rights and they have their legal obligations. And most importantly, they have assets. So if that corporation, or if that either AI or corporation does harm, the person who was harmed can take its restitution from that person. So again, I agree with his idea that currently it is a thing and it is a tool, but in the future it might be different. No one knows, I guess. And I hope that answers your questions. If you want me to clarify even more.
Yeah.
Ahmed,
Yes.
question.
Thank you. It clarifies it. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Osama, for your insightful and interesting presentation. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to seeing you in our future event.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Of course, I'm honored.